Welcome to the So Far So Rare podcast. This week I spoke with Chris Quirk and we talked about loads of things, including the Scottish Premiership landing. There was the whole Daily Blind debacle, insider trading, who knows, giving away lineups with his So Rare activity. We talked about whether or not we're in a dip and whether or not the challenger divisions are too big these days. And then we answered loads of your questions. I hope you enjoy it. Please do subscribe and like the video while you're here. Chris, aka Quirky, welcome to the podcast. You've been on the list for a while, and finally you're here. I've heard you before. I've seen you making videos. I've heard you on other podcasts. Welcome to the So Far So Rare podcast.
Thanks for having me. I've seen your face in so many videos, so it's nice to go back and forth and sort of get to know each other a bit more.
Absolutely. That's the plan. We've an hour and a half, an hour and 15, however long this goes on for. We've lots to talk about today, including the Scottish Premiership, obviously, the size of the challenger division now. There was a bit of sort of a Houdini of the cards. They all disappeared. Are we in a dip? That's a bit of a question I want to talk about. I kind of talked about it last week, but I'll maybe just ask for your opinion, and I won't rehash mine about whether or not people should be buying cards now or waiting for the new season. I'm getting that in the DMs constantly at the minute. And then you're obviously big into Belgian football. We're going to have a look at that. There was a bit of a drama around Daily Blind and the boys. What did they do? They bought a player, sold a player, and stuff like this, and it alerted people to team selections and whatever else. So that's a bit of drama we're going to discuss, and then we've loads of great questions from the listeners. So, Chris, first off, do you want to introduce yourself? You've been on SoRare for over a year now, 22nd of February 21. I'm going to call you a boomer. Introduce yourself, go into as much or little depth as you wish.
I'm Chris. I just love sort of football, and I'm a Tranmere Rovers fan, so I'm used to a lower league standard of football. Tranmere have recently come out of sort of non-league and got promoted. They got up to as high as, sort of second division. Got relegated by points per game because of COVID and everything that happened there. Didn't get to play our games out. But I'd love just watching football. Found SoRare because I was on some other platforms that were similar, but just because they're about football, everyone sort of couples them in and associates them together. But SoRare's really different. But I've seen it all over Twitter, and I thought, okay, this looks like something that I could get interested in. Got onto the Discord, started sort of having a little look around and figuring my way out. And that's where I sort of found Belgian football mostly. The thing that stood out to me about the Belgian football mainly was I could get free streams, and like loads of different sites would offer different things. So I could see so much of the games that I was just like, you know what, like this gives me something to like, I can physically see the players. It's not like in Japan where it's a different schedule. Like it's at like 5 a.m. I can't watch. So, yeah, I was just excited by the fact that I can watch all these games and sort of develop my knowledge.
Yeah, that's the thing with Belgian football. Like, I think what I love is that you sort of latched on to it. A lot of people, they kind of, like I always think of Hoodwink in this example as well, with his love for Cecilia and the K-League and different people. What I love about SoRare is people who would never follow a league just going balls deep and loving it. And like that's obviously what's happening to you with Belgian football. And that is the beauty of SoRare for whatever for you, for the clubs as well. It brings them diehard fans from around the world that would never have given a shit about them before. It's amazing. So you've been on for a while. You made a big purchase recently. You were telling me about Vanaken, were you? You've got a nice limited Vanaken there, and he is in shit hot form.
Yeah, so as you can see there, I've been on for about a year now. And what I'd say is, whilst I've made some good moves, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I feel like I'm the typical manager. I joined about a year ago, but there was the Gary V boom at the time. So cards were already sort of inflated. But I originally put in £500 sort of altogether. And I built my gallery up. I've taken out £1,500. And then I've got the gallery, which I've got today. So when you consider that Hans Vanaken Limited would be £500 alone, my gallery's in a good shape. But, there's a lot of things where I look back and I think, you know what, actually, I'm not that good when it comes to the game side necessarily. I've seen other people with better results. But yeah, it's all like the learning curve, I suppose.
Here's a side topic for you. Where do you stand on percentage of winning lineups? You know that stat in SoRare data. What does it come up at? Let me look. Reward winning lineups. Do you give a shit about it?
I really don't. No, I don't care. I only
Did I?
looked a few times to notice, and I was like, okay, cool. But if it literally come up and said, "Oh, you've won 1% of the time," but that 1% was an Mbappe, do I care? No. Like from what I've put in, I'm happy. I'll take that one big win. That's pretty much what I had. One of the biggest wins was Marmé Thiam, his rare. I won that in a week where there was only few fixtures in Challenger, which was like the Turkish league, and Genk ended up getting suspended those games. And I bet on the fact that it would be suspended. If I entered that in the correct league, I had like a super rare that come into my club at the time. So I was planning to enter it into pro. If I entered it into that league, I'd have won a star rare over Marmé Thiam. So when I say, the mistakes along the way, it's great that I won a Marmé Thiam rare, and I could have sold that for like quarter of an ETH at the time. But I missed out on it. I think it would have been Sucic that I won.
Sucic, yeah, he's doing great at the minute, isn't he?
Yeah. So it's those little things that are really, those are the things that it's exciting, but it's like my passion to sort of learn and want to grow from it and want to try and keep improving. I'm like kicking myself that like I didn't pick the right league or that the player didn't become valid at the time to enter.
Yeah. And my take on that reward winning lineups, I see people referencing it sometimes. I really just don't give a shit because I know that every single week, instead of going to training, I'll stick guys into all sorts of stuff that they're never going to win. Now, something that I know, just to go a bit like sort of self-centered for a minute, something I know that I don't do anywhere near enough is win star cards. It's actually a disgrace with a gallery my size that I don't win star cards enough. I think the last star I won was, honestly, you're talking like in the last year, I haven't won any.
Oof.
Which is like obscene. Like, and I know like for beginners and stuff, they're like, oh, shut up, John. You've still won loads of rewards. But whenever you look at the size of the gallery, it's actually kind of embarrassing. So like I need to turn that round. I've turned out a load of tier 1s and tier 2s and shit like that. And over the last month or two, I've had a few like sort of 6ths and 4ths and this type of stuff. No, I didn't even get a 4th. I got a 6th in under 23 rare pro. Let me see. What did I get there? I got by in there, but he wasn't a star. He was a tier 1. Bottom line is I'm not winning anywhere near enough stars. But in terms of that metric, the reward winning lineups, I personally don't give a shit because I know that I put in loads of punty ones. Just like I'd rather than playing, and I'd rather a lottery ticket than training. But anyway, side topic that was in terms of, do you want to move on or anything else to talk about?
So yeah, we can move on to the next topic, I guess. Just sort of let it flow and see what else comes up naturally.
Cool. So the big thing this week is the Scottish Premiership onboarded. The only team missing, I believe, was Rangers. I didn't realize it was such a small league. Am I right in saying that, or were there a few teams missing? I know Rangers are definitely missing.
I think it's a fairly small league anyway, isn't it? So I think there's 12 teams?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just double checking that because it sounds wrong. But is it only 12 teams?
Yeah, I think
it is. So. It's 12 teams. So Rangers are the only ones that aren't actually onboarded to SoRare because they already had some NFT deal with someone else. Which is, I don't know, it's a shame for like the fans. It's a shame. I think a lot of the like prospects and the big players are obviously in Rangers. There's the big two, Celtic and Rangers. So it kind of takes out half the big hitters. Not half the big hitters. That's unfair in the rest of the league. And we know how SoRare can be. The more niche teams or mid-table teams can have guys who are world beaters, but Rangers do have some of the biggest and best players and that would be in Challenger and they're not available yet. But I think like this was a long time coming. Maybe the Rangers was the issue. Maybe Rangers was the delay because I recorded a video with Hendo probably about a month and a half ago and I only dropped it yesterday because we thought the Scottish Premiership was coming and then it just seemed to be delayed forever. Do you give a shit about Scottish football? Have you bought anyone? Is there anyone you want?
I'm not massively into it in terms of like, I follow it and I know which scorers are going to be good. However, there is some players that like Josh Ginnelly doesn't really score at all, doesn't do well whatsoever. But as like a collector's item, I'm going to pick up a limited Josh Ginnelly just because when Tranmere were in the playoffs run and we were out in non-league, he scored an amazing goal, and sort of, that memory of that day against Ebbsfleet United, I'm going to go and pick one up. And I think that's something that people might sleep on with the Scottish League, is people who follow like smaller clubs will be aware of some of these players and be like, you know what, I want to jump in and just get them because I like the player.
Yeah. I won't. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's like me with my wee Danny Parejo thing. Everyone has their little niche guy who they love and who they want. And like a lot of these guys in Scottish football have probably been around those sort of lower tier English clubs. And there's obviously a huge UK contingent on the platform. So maybe we'll see a bit of fandom here. Obviously, like this, I don't know if, and I need to check if Simply Alex has went balls deep, but I've seen Quinny picked up a unique today. So we're seeing some in Hybe and the boys. I don't know if Hendo, McBride, I'd say they're all shopping like mad, getting all excited.
Yeah, they all are. I'm seeing that all over the timeline as well. I've got a little group chat that I'm in, and they're all saying, we're looking at these players as well. So it is a shame that Rangers haven't been given a license, because I feel like, the rivalries that fierce, that maybe some people go, well, Rangers aren't on, so I'm not even going to bother. But if they stay, and hopefully they do, they'll notice, you've already got players like Fashion Sakala and Kemar Roof that are already on the platform from earlier clubs. So hopefully they'll still stick around, and maybe it's to come in the future.
Well, SoRare did say that they are excited to hopefully try and get Rangers in the future. I seen that written somewhere. I seen like a Discord screenshot. So, I mean, they are still confident that maybe they'll get them someday, but there's definitely a sort of pause put on that. Something I will say about the cards is, and I know a big thing I wanted to talk about is whether we're in the dip or not. I would say we are. I don't know if you disagree. But the prices do seem low, even with that in mind. Like, I'm just looking there. Some of these super rares and uniques, I'm starting to think like, Jesus wept. This week I bought like an Erling Haaland and an Mbappe limited. And I'm like, for the price of those guys, like I'm looking here at like Quinny picked up a unique 28-year-old who starts for Celtic. And I think he's the captain. I don't even know him. Is it McGregor or someone?
Yeah, McGregor.
Callum McGregor, who put up an 81 score not too long ago, a 69, a 59, a unique. And I think it was one on auction for like 1.8 ETH, like by YNWA, and then he traded him to Quinny. Quinny gave up that 1 of 100 Van de Vet rookie. But like, I don't know, some of these prices seem a little bit like they're really low. And I'm like, geez, man, I just spunked my load on limiteds. But like some of these under 23 guys, I'm looking thinking they can score as good as anyone else. Could it be the time when I pick up my under 23 unique? I don't know. I need to find money down the back of a sofa or something, because like I honestly thought there'd be a little bit more hype, because there is a really strong Scottish contingent. Every other person who makes content seems to be Scottish, and there's a lot of people who don't. Do you know?
Yeah.
Did the prices surprise you at all, or have you not really paid attention?
No, to be honest, it's not something that I've paid attention to in terms of the Scottish League, because it's like, well, there's no one that I really want to go and pick up. Personally, I did notice like some of the uniques and super rares. I noticed Hybe picked up that super rare for like, what was it, like £100 and something, and I was thinking, okay, that seems cheap as well. But I think in general, some of the prices that I see, I'm just a bit like, how is that so cheap? Like, I'm mainly focusing on like rare cards and the limiteds, but I noticed Haaland's price and I was thinking he was literally like double that, like not too long ago. Like, it's crazy how much they've dropped off. It's just player dependent.
It is, like, as well, I suppose, like in terms of launching a league when there's 5 games left in the season. And I mean, a lot of people, I've had a few messages today, people being like, John, like they're going to launch all these cards, I'm going to buy them and have 5 games. It's a bit of a dip now. They might dip further. What if they launch next season's cards in August? And then there's actually double the supply. Now, I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll space it out a bit. I don't think they would have like 2 years worth of supply out before the new season. But maybe they would. And it's the uncertainty there, I think, that maybe has a few people hesitating. It's a tough one. But like, I think I'm definitely looking at a few of these guys. There's maybe 2 or 3 under 23 guys that I really like the look of. And I'm like, if the uniques of some of these guys are going for a couple of ETH, I might pick this super rare up for half an ETH or something. Like,
yeah, I think sometimes when a new league or club's onboarded, people do sometimes just like sleep on them. Like because you won't necessarily look unless it's something that you're looking for. So we had it with all the Turkish leagues that sort of were newly added. I think people got bargains on some of those players when you look at them. I remember Hamsik at one point, he was down at like 0.2 and he was up to 0.6 quite quickly and everything. He's back down now after not playing. But there were so many of these players that, like, when a new club's onboarded, people are like not necessarily looking completely in depth, I don't think. So it's just being active on that market all the time, isn't it? And you're bound to see it.
And maybe I suppose that 12-team system, I don't know how many games they actually play in a season. I don't know enough about the league. I'm assuming they don't just play 22 games. Do they? Do they play each other 3 times or something? Like, how does that work? Do you know anything about it, or am I?
No. I think it splits off from what I'm seeing, but I don't know whether that's correct.
Need to look at. Oh, yeah, well, 33 matches played so far, so they must play each other a good few times. There's a championship group. There's a championship group, and then there's a relegation group. I don't know when they split off though. But yeah, it's one of those leagues that's kind of weird, like a lot of these kind of challenger leagues, which throws up the kind of conversation then about we're looking at challenger. It's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. And as a guy who likes Belgian football, does it concern you having more big hitters thrown into the mix, more teams? But then the converse to that is more cards that can be won.
I don't think necessarily more teams is the thing that I'm thinking. My first thought was more rewards. I think you're one of those people, aren't you? You're the first person that's going to be like, oh no, this is going to make Challenger harder, or you're going to be like, oh well, there's a chance of more rewards. And the reality is, you should be building good enough teams anyway, and it shouldn't be a week like we've had this week with the Zagreb stacks, where people have had one common and they've managed to get a reward with it. Like, that's not how it should be. You should be having a strong team regardless. So for me, it's not necessarily a concern. It is harder in that, like, the lower end cards just feel a bit sort of missed out. But when I was thinking about, like, maybe you could split it, not so it's like, okay, these leagues and these clubs are Challenger A and Challenger B. Maybe you could split it off with, like, okay, this is max 1 or 2 per team, and this one is you can have as many as you like. And then you could keep the prize pools somewhat similar that way as well. I don't know whether that's something that but it's something that SoRare have sort of experimented with.
Yeah, they've experimented that with the specialist, isn't it? The kind of max 2 players, so the capping, the stacking. But I don't know. There's part of me, right? There's been talks of this splitting up Challenger, and I was listening to the SoRare Andrews podcast, and I think they were talking about, like, do you go where, like, you have your Ajaxes and your Sporting Lisbons and your Portos and your Celtics and whoever else is the elite performers in one bracket, and then you have the other, like, the shitter teams, like lower halves in the other bracket. I don't like that personally. I think leagues should be together. I think you kind of, and I also think that, like, the dominating teams, I don't want my really good guys competing with the really good guys only every week. It takes away from the value of them in a respect. Like, I want my really good guys to shit over the other guys. Do you know what I mean? That's why they were bought. They were bought because they shit over the crap teams. And if people want to go and buy a budget stack that might bang once a season, that's fine. But, like, I think it's almost like against what's been built so far. If the guys who have spent thousands on an Ajax stack all of a sudden are up against only I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But part of me also thinks, like, you know, you could just do it east and west, north and south. Or do it based on, like, the FIFA coefficient or whatever. If you need to make the league smaller, make it like Champion, Challenger, Conference or something. You could do it that way. I don't know.
The only thing that I'd say is, like, it's a really hard one to get right, I guess, to get the reward pool right, and keep everyone happy. And we're already struggling in some aspects with the reward pool. So it's like, let's keep it basic and make sure that everything's okay first. And then maybe this is a solution we can look at for a later date where we're like, actually, Challenger does need to be split up. For me, I think the best way to do it would not necessarily be like splitting up north, east, south, west. If SoRare got mainstream as it plans to be, maybe it's just each division, each league has their own retrospective one, because then you've got a bit more to play with.
Yeah, so you just have like the Belgian league, but then you're only winning Belgians with Belgians, which is fine. But maybe people want the chance at winning. Does that mean you have to go against the Ajax stack with Eredivisie players to try and win Ajax players? Does that almost make the problem worse? Do you know, where like in each league, like if you don't have Ajax, you're fucked. You know, in that division. Now, I think they would always have the challenger champion under 23 all-star game modes. And it's what you're suggesting there, what I've heard is definitely, I think, like definitely something that makes sense for the future, like league-specific fantasy football, 100%. But part of me wonders, like, if you don't have Celtic or Rangers players, why are you, like, what are your chances in the Scottish division? I mean, maybe, I don't know the league, I don't know the best teams. Maybe a couple of times a season, Dundee win 3-0, and then they're going to challenge it because Celtic and Rangers were playing that week and drew one each and whatever else. I don't know. It's but it's definitely a consideration, because I think if we go and look at, let me see, if we look at the divisions at the minute, does it tell you? Yeah, so like Champion Europe, there's 5 competitions covered. Challenger, there's 15. So there's 3 times as many sort of leagues. I don't know what the prizes are saying. Like if we're looking at Champion Europe Rare, 265, Challenger Europe Rare, 365. Like that's a lot of cards, a lot more teams for not a hell of a lot more rewards on the face of it. But then there's smaller divisions.
To be honest, I think in the way that it is now, it sort of just works as best as, you know, we've discussed some possible ways that they could go, and it's still tough there to come out with one that people are going to be like, yeah, let's do that because it sounds right. I think what you just have to understand is, for me personally, people who just go, yeah, I'm going to put out my Ajax stack, like, because I've got all the money, I can just do it. I don't think that takes necessarily too much skill, but you've skipped that skill element by paying a ton more for your squad. Whereas I might get a lot of cheaper guys who are scoring decently well, and they might have a good fixture. And the benefit of having those guys is when I do win a reward, I need to win less to regain what I've put out for the squad, basically. So you know, it's sort of swings and roundabouts, isn't it? You've got to take the rough with the smooth. And, you know, what people have been doing this season is Beerschot have been terrible in the Belgian league, and people have been like, okay, I'm building whoever's playing Beerschot, I'm building a stack. So, you know, it's a hard one, isn't it? There is opportunities to still win in Challenger. So, yeah, it's a tough one to find a solution that makes everyone happy.
It'd be interesting to see if they action it, because I mean, a lot of people are complaining, you know, and even whenever Celtic, and when I say Celtic come out, whenever the Scottish Premier League come out, like as exciting as that is, there still were a lot of comments about like, oh, I retweeted the announcement, just said like huge or something. I was on the move, like, oh, geez, that's great, amazing, whatever, huge, fire, whatever. And a few people writing on it, what, the size of the Challenger division? And I'm like, touche, you know, like it is getting pretty fucking big. But yeah, look, I think it's exciting. More players. I think a lot of guys have been waiting for these teams. Starfelt, I just looked there. His 2 of 100 went for a pretty penny. It wasn't scrimped on. He's actually a monster on the Matrix, though. But we'll move on. Yeah, let's hope Rangers come someday. If anyone wants to sort of consume content around Scottish football, I know Quinny's put out some great stuff. Hendo's there. And I have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel by the time this goes out, sort of prospecting players and who you should look at. We'll go into a wee bit of drama for a second. Cards all disappeared from people's galleries. Now, this is one of those that there's probably not a lot to really talk about, but I got a few disgruntled messages, worried new managers. John, I think I've been hacked. I've lost all my cards. And it was like, I was busy yesterday, so it was like 4 hours later I replied, and I was like, I hope you're all right, lad. Don't worry, it's just a bug. Like, you know, calm your cacks. That sort of stuff shouldn't really be happening, but there's a lot of stuff that shouldn't really be happening with this much money on the line. I have to say, I had a wee panic because I think I won an Upamecano Limited at auction and went to have a look at my gallery, and he was the only card there. Now, the only thing that stopped me shitting my cacks was my overview still had my Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, but like nothing was showing. and then I was trying to look for cards, and I was doing a wee bit of digging, and I couldn't see any and all. Did you get a panic? Did you care? Did you follow it, or did it kind of blow over by the time you looked?
I had that slight panic that you had, I think. Seeing I had just bought some players as well because I've built for the specialist league. I needed to pick up a few players, so they were appearing, and I was like, "Wait, where's all my players gone?" And I've got a ton of commons in my club because I just rinsed the common league. There's no chance I'm ever going to win in that, but I'm still trying.
Yeah.
But I was like, I was slowly getting my players back, and I was trying to set my lineups for the weekend, and I was just like, "Wait, is this the best keeper that I have? Where's like such and such rare?" Because Trossard had been benched or whatnot yesterday, so I was like, "Oh, maybe I need to make sure that he's not playing." So I had that like little panic, but yeah, I saw the Hall of Fame and I was like, "Okay, everything's okay." Then I saw the comms come out, but not everyone's going to see those comms, so I don't know. But the people that aren't going to see the comms are likely not going to be on the website that often either. So they've probably come back. Everything's fine. The house is burning down, but they've just been stood there like, yeah, I'm fine. So yeah. It's just one of those little niggly things that add up, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, like, look, we could sit here and bitch about it all day. I don't understand why that sort of stuff happens, but it happened. It is what it is. I mean, it shouldn't happen. And I think the issue, the broader issue in terms of their comms is that, and they said that the comms is something they really wanted to improve. Remember that snazzy video with Nicholas?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Discord's really sufficient. I know you'd like to. I think like there should be. Maybe there was. Maybe I'm being harsh on them. But like for something like that, there should be a wee like notification on SoRare itself or a pop up screen when you go to your gallery or something like that. But look, it happened. It's done. Nothing. It was just a display bug. But speaking of cards disappearing, nice little segue here. Daily Blend and the boys were having a ball. Kenneth Taylor seems to have cleared out his gallery, apart from one card, which is his player edition. I haven't looked at Klassen. What was he at? But the story here, in a nutshell, is that Daily Blend, maybe, I don't know, all I know, Daily Blend's the headline, but Klassen, Taylor, whoever else maybe were involved, they like sold Onana and brought in Stecklenburg ahead of the game at the weekend. And people can see, obviously, what teams were built beforehand. Now, Stecklenburg didn't even play, did he?
I don't. I think it was a cup game. That's what it was. What I did notice is some of the lads in the chat were saying, "Well, we knew this was bound to happen anyway because the fans weren't happy after the game before that, and they spoke about it in the press conference, sort of alluding to the fact that Onana won't be playing again." So yeah, it's just a bit mad that they were on. I think what they thought is they've probably just went, you know what, I was about to set my squad for the week. I've got no keeper now, but we don't know what their intent was. Were they just trying to make a quick buck, or were they just like, well, actually, I play for Ajax. I know this player's playing. I need the goalkeeper, so I'm going to go out and buy him because I know he's going to start.
Yeah, I think it's more. I think it's more likely the latter. I don't think these Ajax players are worried about flipping a quick limited or two or rare Stecklenburg. Like, I really don't think that couple of £100 is worth it for them. Do you know, I don't think they knew it was wrong in any way, shape, or form because it's not worth it. It's not like it's that big a deal. This isn't like Calvin Ratzi or one of the under 23 guys, Gorder or whoever, getting a call up and nailed on into the team, and his price is going to 5x, and we see Daily Blind buy 7 of them and list them all to market for hire. Like, that is mad. I don't actually know exactly what he did, but I'm assuming it wasn't that bad. All I know here, looking at like Davy Klassen's account, he bought a Martin Stecklenburg 8 days ago. But I mean, he also bought a Brian Brobby, a Daily Blend, a Kuno, Anthony, Kenneth Taylor, Davy Klassen. He's bought a load of his mates over the last few weeks. And like, I get the whole part of it that's like, it's akin to insider trading and stuff. Like, I do get that. And it is something I've wondered about, like, players playing it, because while it's not gambling, there is that insider knowledge. And I think I've always kind of thought that maybe clubs wouldn't like it because of tipping off opposition, because of lineup building, because of letting people know what's going to happen. But like, ethically, I don't think any of them have overstepped. That said, I haven't really dug into it. But unless you're like buying multiples of someone who's going to go through the roof, purposely, blatantly to flip and flipping. I mean, buying a wee keeper because you know he might play and your mate played shite during the week, or Onana broke his finger and you're like, all right, this guy's going to play, and you hear before anyone else and you go in and buy one to use in your SO5. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's that bad, but obviously journalists are going to blow shit like that out of proportion, and maybe it's not a bad look overall, because then where do you draw the line? Do you know?
Yeah, I think what's important to note with this situation specifically is the articles come out from The Athletic from Joey D'Urso, who's already made his stance within SoRare quite clear. So I think you have to take that into account. Look, he's trying to do the right thing and he's promoting the other side. I'm not going to, go in on him or anything like that at all, because it is a bit of a grey area. But fortunately, because of SoRare, the players are verified within the game itself. So when you pull up Klaassen or whoever it is, you can click on the name, see that they're verified on SoRare, you can see their account, and then if you get an offer through, say you add a Stecklenberg and you get a cheap offer and it comes in from Daily Blind and he wants to buy your Stecklenberg, you're going to take a second to pause and go, wait, why does Daily Blind want to buy my Stecklenberg? And then you just go, you know what, reject, because we have that info as well, as long as we're keeping active, on the accounts. I think it's more of a club problem. We've seen it with the FPL teams where they've leaked lineups and things like that. I think it's going to be more of the clubs where they might be upset about what they've done. They might get a little bit of a telling off, and maybe they understand the ethics behind it after that. But I don't know. I don't think it's been about, creating profit for themselves.
If Daily Blind tries to buy your Stecklenburg, say no. If Genesis says, let me buy your French youngster, say no. And if Chris Quirk says, give me your Belgian player, say no. Like, that's a rule I have. If it's an account I know, and I know that they're better than me, or they know more than me, if SoRare Japan comes at me looking to buy a Japanese guy, it's an instant no thanks. Do you know? But just looking there. Oh, it's going up now. Sorry, I've got SoRare open here. Remember Charlie Adam? He's down here as Charles.
Yeah, Charles.
He's off the back of a couple of really nice scores, and his card looks like it's going pretty cheap. Now I know he's about 40 million years old, but like, he hasn't aged particularly well, has he?
He hasn't at all. Little Charles.
Do you know what's terrible though? Like, I mean, when I say he hasn't aged well, all the guy's done is shaved his head. Fair play to him. He used to be an absolute wizard. Remember, is he left-footed? I think I remember him being left-footed. Did he score from like the halfway line at one stage?
Yeah, I believe so. He's one of those players that, I live quite near to Liverpool, but I don't support Liverpool. I'm not really. I'm more of a hateful watcher of Liverpool. Don't like seeing them do well. I don't like Everton either, for that record. I just like Tranmere. All Merseyside clubs, I want to see more emphasis focused on Tranmere. And when I see Liverpool doing well, my dad supports Liverpool and he always gives me stick. So Charlie Adam, all I remember is his time in the Premier League. And I wish Liverpool were as bad as they were back then.
Yeah. It kind of, I remember, like, was he pre, like, Sturridge, Sterling, Suarez? Was he pre or like around then?
I think he was similar time. He was like Balotelli time, those sort of times as well. Roy Hodgson and all that.
But we've already touched on it, but I want to ask you just sort of more abrasive, like straight to the point. Are we in a dip?
Yes.
Did you think this dip was projected and expected, or do you think it's a little bit more severe than one might have liked?
I think it was expected for the most part, just because I was on last year and I know what happened last year. It was even worse. I mean, if you look back through my accounts, I remember winning Engadji Rare and I sold that for like 0.025. That's a card that I sold earlier in the season for 0.2. So, with the influx of new users over this season, it's increased. But I feel like it's not dropping to the lows that we were last year. Last year, you could get a ton more bargains. I did quite a bit of shopping in the off season last season. It feels like players that are good, people are just saying, you know what, I'm not selling below this price because I know that he's too good. So I think that's stopping the dip from going crazy. And also with limited, I think they would have dipped off more. But SoRare were quite smart in introducing the specialist league because we sort of had that little break, didn't we? I think it was like an international break. And they announced that they were going to do the specialist limited league. And these limiteds that were dipping automatically went straight back up. So that's where I bought my Vanaken sort of around that time. And yeah, they're not really dipping from that stage on because people are like, you know what, actually, I might be getting into the limited market a little bit more now. But I think what I've noticed over the past few days is I've been looking at rare goalkeepers. It seems like the rare goalkeepers are starting to go up already. People are trying to be quick on the move with that one. So the ones that I was seeing that were getting close to 0.1 ETH for the rare, I'm seeing some of them are already, you know, way up there and doubling and stuff. So goalkeepers are already being looked at.
Yeah, I think like, so for me, like if I just talk about the sort of whole grand dip thing, right? Like the only thing I find it really hard. I went in a bit of a rant on this. For anyone interested, by the way, don't make fun of me, Chris, but I've got a YouTube members section now, and there's a Discord there. But I was chatting to a few guys today for a while, and like a wee voice chat that we have, and we were talking about this dip sort of idea and how dips operate and how they work in SoRare land, and how, because we have a limited amount of data and sort of history to go off, and a lot's changed since last time, and a lot could change imminently. Like the Scottish Premier League dropped, you know, like that happened out of nowhere yesterday. Like things can happen. SoRare can drop the Premiership in 2 weeks, maybe, probably not. More likely if they get it in 2-3 months, I would say, if they get it. But that could, like, something that's just a huge example. But even things like the mobile, it's just turning on the tap of market and things like this, there's so many little levers behind the scenes that we can't see that can either accelerate the dip or turn it the opposite way around and we boom. So I think it's hard to project what exactly is going to happen. But I think it's fair to say over the last 2 to 3 cycles across the different leagues, the dip in leagues tends to happen, I say 6 to 8 weeks before the end of a season. People think they're clever. They get out before the end of the league. And then what you'll inevitably find, and I would back to happen, is that things will start to get healthier again when the league's actually finished, because people are saying, well, I'm going to wait till the league finishes, then buy back in. But the thing is as well, in terms of like anyone panicking or worrying, now I'm not going to tell anyone like go and do your own research. Maybe this is the end and we're all dipping forever and that's that. I don't think that is happening personally, because if the only thing I can equate to that has a bit of a history that's relatively similar but still very different is the physical card world. And in the physical sports card world, in the off season, there is a dip. There's a dip, and it's a cycle that happens every single year. And it is long. Everyone expects it. It's almost like self-fulfilling because everyone knows it's going to happen. So it happens every year. And like, I think anyone 3 months ago would have said, oh yeah, we'll come into the end of the European season, the end of players under 23 eligibility. There's no European championships or anything, or World Cup this summer. You know, it's going to be a long few months. There'll be a dip. It's all about when the dip was happening. No one ever said it wasn't going to happen. So now it's here, baby. Do you know what I mean? So for me, everyone knew it was going to happen. It's happening. And now people are like, holy shit, it's happening. But it was always going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I think a large portion of the SoRare users are people who are similar to myself, where they're entering All-Star, they're trying to get the thresholds and sort of grind the way up. The players that they have aren't necessarily players that they want necessarily. Like, I think they're picking up players who are good to grind the ETH, but not someone where they're like, you know what, I've paid this amount, I'm happy with them long term, and I can just sit through with them. And that's where my focus has shifted more now. So it's like, I've got my Woot Fez rare, and it's like, that's a card that I'm not really going to sell. He's at a price where I'm like, it's too cheap. I'm going to sit on him. And he'll be someone that I think he's got about a 5-year cycle where I can sit on him and I don't have to panic or worry. I know that good things are coming up, and I can just be a bit more confident in my own players. So again, that was something that, from speaking with Quinny, he just mentioned, buy players who you have a bit more of an affinity to and ones that you can sit on long term, because as a lower budget user, you're constantly transitioning, trying to build your gallery up. But at the same time, you're not bringing in players that you necessarily like all the time, and you're not getting that extra XP bonus, which is massive. So yeah, I think invest in the ones that you believe in, over a certain time, like a more substantial time period, because you can see that the dip's going to come. But I do think we could see a bit of a boost with European players, because we have the Nations League that's scored that maybe some people haven't started looking at yet. But that's around like June time, I believe. But there's a lot of teams playing in that, and I believe there's like 6 fixtures or something. Or is it 4 different game days? So I think that'll be a time where people have sold up because it's end of season. I can get out and get in cheaper, and we're going to start to see those prices boom a little bit again.
That the Nations League is a huge thing. Someone actually mentioned that to me today, and here I am talking about no international football in the summer. I think like it is one of those in terms of like it goes on to this question. I'm going to ask you this straight to the point as well, and then I'm going to come back and give you a bit of a spiel. I'm getting asked this every day. We talked about it last week in the podcast. I might have even already asked you this, but I'm going to ask you it again, and perhaps tell me to shut up. Do you buy cards now or wait for the new season cards?
I think you buy cards that you like now if they're at the right price. It just depends on the context. If they're going to be used now and you're going to use them in the future, just buy them. It saves you the problem. You don't want to be someone where you're like, I wish I'd have bought him. We're going to have a lot of things happening over the transfer rumors. So if there is a player where you're like, no, I don't like that price, hold your money and opportunities will arise, and then pick the ones that you do like. There'll be plenty of opportunities to get in. So,
yeah, because I'm not going to go off on my spiel. But I do think it's very league dependent, player dependent. But the reason I bring that up is because you were talking about like buying those players that you have an affinity to that you'll hold for longer, and it just makes me think about like the million different strategies there are on SoRare. And like when I look at my gallery, I do tend to buy guys and sit on them long term. Like there's guys who love the like trading and in and out, and I know the optimal move, and I knew it at the time was to sell Koku like a month ago, because I know now we're getting to that squeaky moment, and I know I'm calling it now. In a month's time, he's going to be 0.9 ETH. Whenever I could have sold him a month ago for 2 ETH, and like there's going to be the squeaky bum time, the transfer rumors. He's going to go somewhere. He's not going to be as good a player or dominant scoring wise, and da. But like, I just like to buy. I want him. Maybe if I'd have spent like 2 ETH on him, I'd feel different, but I won him when he was like a tier 2 and just held him. So maybe I feel differently. But my point is there's a million different ways to play it. And for me, it's easy to say, I mean, for yourself, let's buy guys that you're happy to play with for a long time. Because I always say, like, just get the oldest version of the card with the most XP you can get leveling it up, get it training. And next time the XP is reset, you're already in the position that you're ahead. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whenever everyone buys these new season cards now, whenever next season they lose the 5%, your guy from last season that you've already leveled up to level 18 is a plus 9% card, whereas they might be rocking a plus 4%, plus 5%. Then all the new cards have 5%. You're 4% ahead of everyone. You know, everyone. So like, I'm always like, buy the oldest version of the card with the most XP and just get it moving. But I know there are people who do play it. It's a different strategy completely. When people are playing this game, particularly now with like underdog leagues and specialist leagues, where they're kind of building teams for 1 week, or you mentioned Target and Beershot, you know, building teams for 1 week, for 2 weeks, it's different because that XP matters for that week or for that month or for that 6-week fixture period that people buy for now. And I find it hard. Maybe I'm just the wrong person to give any sort of advice or maybe answer the question, because I just think so differently. I love the collectability personally. That's my own bias. I love the older cards. I love holding guys longer term. So like, I don't know. Maybe I need to get some flipper, some like real flipper crazy bastard on the podcast. If anyone knows anyone, hit us up. But I'm going to hit you with is there anything else on that?
No. We can move forward.
There's 2 things I want to do. One thing was a bit of speculation, right? I just thought this was an interesting little piece. Again, on that Discord today, I was chatting with a couple of guys, and we kind of went down this wee rabbit hole of talking. And I came up with a play. I've got a play, right? The play is this. And it's the most glaringly obvious thing in the world that might never come to fruition, but I'm going to call it now. Do your own research. SoRare have confirmed 2 major American sports are coming. Okay?
Yep.
What are Americans known for? Eggnog and bagels. No. They're known for, like, they're big collectors. They love sports cards. Like that's the card collecting hub of the world. Americans, they love their collectability. So they're going to come in because they love their basketball, baseball, NFL, whatever. They're going to dabble in their SoRare. They're going to get all into it. I think in those markets, we see a much more collectible nature in the cards. Akin to the physical world. I think the baseball, I always use Steph Curry. He could even be retiring, I don't know. But you're one of 1,000 Steph Curry, I think, has a higher premium than you're one of 1,000. Maybe not, actually, because he is like LeBron James. I don't know. I just think there's more collectability there is the crux of the matter, right? So what I think is all these guys come in their droves, like hundreds of thousands of them come in to play these American sports. And then they say, oh my God, this is so rare, man. It has like soccer. And then they go, you know what I'm going to do? I want to get involved in soccer. And they look it up and they go, Hans Vanaken, dude, cool. And they go and they buy Hans Vanaken. I hope Emily's in the background here. They buy Hans Vanaken, right? And they're like, oh, cool. I can use my Hans Vanaken in my like sports all-star. Cool. And they're all playing together, right? And then they go, it'd be really rad, man, if we buy. I'm sorry to every American listening. I'm purposely being terrible. They're going to go and they're going to buy their little sweethearts for World Cups and international football. They're going to go and buy their Weston McKinneys. They're going to buy their Pulisic's if he's licensed. They're going to buy their Tyler Adams, their George Bellows, their Ricardo Pepis. So the play and the call is now, if you want a passive game, if you don't want to play SO5, and if you just want to buy guys and sit on them and sell them in a year's time, stock up on young Americans. I'm calling it. It's a play.
Okay.
It makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I think that play does make sense. Again, it's not a league I follow, but it does make a lot of sense to just be like, you know what? Who are the best Americans? Let's go on them. I think it will just be the American cards. I can't really see them coming over and being like, yeah, I'm going to get my Hans Vanaken. Okay. I can't see it. I can't see it.
But
it'll
dude,
just be
I want
the
my
Americans.
Leo Messi, man.
I could see it on bigger players like that. Like when you bought your Ronaldo, like when there was a boom last time, or there was a dip last time, and you picked up the Ronaldo. I think those sorts of moves, they're going to go for the top players that they know.
Yeah.
So yeah, the ones with collectability. Yeah, I like that play a lot.
So yeah, we're calling it. Brad Guzan isn't out of the running yet. Go and pick him up. Speedy recovery, Brad. I hope that's actually another lesson, another weekly lesson that a player's price can die overnight. But yeah, I'm thinking like, I don't know. I keep spending money on stuff that I shouldn't spend money on, like limiteds. I should be going buying uniques and I should be trying to advance the gallery up into and compete in super rare divisions and whatever else. And I know that's what I should do. But part of me just wants to degen in and buy 10 Ricardo Pepis and sell them to a bunch of Yanks in a year's time. I don't know.
I've heard you on other podcasts where you talked about a certain Ajax player that you wish you picked up a few of. So I'd just say trust your intuition and actually execute on it this time. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe I will. If there's any Americans listening, which I know there are because we have the data, let me know. Like, well, you're already into football, so maybe you're the wrong person to ask. Do you think if you had friends who would come on and play for basketball, would they buy a Pulisic for collectability, or do they just not give a shit? Anyway, there we go. There's my play of the week. Right, Chris, straight up, no kissing. I want you to tell me who are the top 3 Belgian youngsters coming through, if you had to pick 3.
First, I'm going to go with Arthur Tiarte, one you'll like. You've got the super rare. Today, he has been linked with AC Milan and Juventus. He's currently playing for Genoa, and it's rumoured to be about £25 million for him. He's still 21, left-footed, so I'm going to go Arthur Tiarte as the first one.
Is he not? He's a Bologna, is he?
But Bologna, is it? Yeah, I get mixed up with
Zinho Van Huysden.
Yeah.
Van Huysden's at Genoa, and they're like both the same. They're both young Belgian centre backs. I used to always mix them up. So whenever you said Genoa, I was like, he's thinking Van Huysden.
Edit that out now.
So first up was Arthur Theate. I'm over the moon. Keep pumping my young Belgians, please.
Number 2, I'm going to go Amadou Onana, who's playing for Lille. He's 20, I believe. He's physical, and I believe that the French league is where he is going to make his name for himself. The next Tchouaméni.
Oh, big call. Onana, as I tap on my keyboard to go and buy him. Who's next?
Third, I'm going to go with Charles de Ketelaere. That's how you say it, I believe. And
Okay.
he is rumoured with a few clubs, but he's so versatile. He's so well liked, and I think he's just a really promising talent. He's got the big things coming for him. As long as it's not Leicester, please.
yeah. The Ketelaere, or however you meant to say it. I think you have it on your Twitter actually. I was creeping. I seen it, but yeah, that's a name I butcher. But I had him a while ago. I snagged him off Pavel for like 0.125, robbed him, ended up selling for like 0.6, 0.8, something like that. But it was the transfer that scared me with him. I could just see him going and bench warming, or even if he goes to Leicester, doing a Patson Daka type vibe, you know. But look, three really promising young players. Will we answer some questions?
Let's go for it.
Before we do, I've actually just been heartbroken. I had a bit of in terms of the midweek, how my teams have been doing. In under 23 Rare Pro, I had Hakimi with an 82 captain. I had Nico Williams with a 66 Super Rare, Bruno Gomares with an 82, and then Jonathan David got an appearance and got 29 points, right? I'm currently sitting in 20th, 26 get cards, and Donnarumma didn't play for me. The rankings are 99% complete, but I'm afraid here now that I'm going to drop a few places to like Ferran Torres, or like, there's a couple of games on tonight.
Yeah.
And then I have another one, which is kind of heartbreaking, where an All-Star Rare Pro, I'd Nubel with a 60, Boubacar Kamara with like a 90, Trent with a 56, Parejo with a 65, and then I have Depay, who's a substitute, and I'm 40 points off for reward. I need him to come off the bench and grab a goal. If he does that, I'm on for a tier 2 and potentially even a tier 1 card. So fingers crossed. Maybe we'll know by the time we're finished recording. Okay, so let's go and look at some questions. The most liked question this week is an absolute belter. It made me laugh a bit more than it should, maybe. Robbo wants to know, if you were 2 inches into white phase and Collins 5 was 2 inches into you, how fast would you go back and forth? And I can just visualize it, and it tickled me.
To be honest, I noticed that one last night, and I was like, I don't even know where I begin to answer that question. I don't know whether I want to think about that. I'm not really sure how to answer that question, but yeah, I did have a bit of a love for Collins Fire at one point. Hugo Sakai had moved to Freiburg, and Collins Fire had started for Liège. Picked him up quite cheap. I was pumping him. He did hit some good scores because he went to AFCON and then he got transferred to Saudi Arabia. But yeah, I still would have made a lot of people a lot of money if they got him when I did. So even though I didn't sell at the top, I bought for like less than 0.01 and I sold him for like 0.025, but he peaked at like 0.06. So I was good. I should have just held on, but I didn't have the time to.
Yeah. Collins Fye there, the big red X at Doom. Yeah, I don't know. He still gets international appearances, does he?
Yeah.
See the 2 games there against Algeria recently. But anyway, on to the next question. This one, just to give him a shout out, Mark O'Sullivan, Mark Alele asked a question that we've pretty much got into, saying about what would be the best way for SoRare to split up Challenger, and is it worthwhile restructuring all the divisions so that teams are separated in divisions based on their L15 score? So that kind of goes back to me saying about like having all the good teams in one pool and all the shitter teams in another. And like, I don't know, part of me, even though I was against it in a big way there, part of me does think that it is exciting to know that if with your really good players, if they do well, you can win really good players. And you're not going to get some like dodgy Austrian mid-table guy who happens to shoot 60s each week. But then I don't know. No, I think if I had to have a stance, I would not like all the best teams to be in one division and all the worst teams to be in another division. I'd like it to be geographical so that there are meta teams.
Yeah.
Maybe you bring in stacking laws. I don't know.
I
Do you have anything else to throw in?
I think maybe just stacking laws is the only way that I'd add. If there's some sort of stacking, but I suppose people will just go, you know what, I'm going to have Tadic and whoever, and then I'm going to go and have, a Brugge stack. So it's like, either way, people are going to find ways around it. But I think the specialist leagues and the underdog leagues sort of cover like the last 15 score. So at least there's something for those like lower cards.
Yeah. Yeah, like the stacking thing, I don't know if it adds up because one of the big arguments here that always comes up is about how, like, with stacking, it can actually benefit the smaller accounts because they can go and stack a lesser fashionable team. And whenever that team does win 3-0 once a season, they will win cards, you know? And it just means that the rich people can come in and they can buy their Tadic, Vanaken, Moriaka. They can throw in Jurriën Timber, say that's their 2 Ajax maxed out. And then they throw in like a Diogo Costa or like, I don't know, pick any over 23 keeper as well. And all of a sudden, there you go. In terms of challenger, you have, like, it doesn't matter about stacking. You've got an absolute monster team. And even if you look,
sorry, I've just interrupted. Sorry.
No, go for it.
The only thing that I did see is some people were saying maybe you could somehow limit it based on value. So, like, your team has got to be worth a certain value. But how do they regulate that and track that? It's really difficult. But that's the only other solution. Yeah.
I think like that you're kind of getting into specialist territory there, aren't you? You're kind of looking at instead of like going for the value, because I mean, if you're going by value, people are going to have to do the kind of specialist thing where you have a couple of budget guys and whatever else. I really like the specialist vibe, but I mean, I don't know if I'd like, you know, to completely come in and overtake what we currently have in Challenger. I mean, I don't know if anyone out there actually is really passionate on the whole Challenger thing. Come and talk to me. Reach out, because I'd like, if someone has a really coherent argument either way, I'd love to actually have someone on who is really passionate and like wants to fucking, you know, tell me about it. Because personally, I'm just terrible at it, because I'm kind of like, oh, but there's more awards, so it'll be good fun. But like, I get that there's a lot more to it than that. Rory Brown says, Belgian football is my level on SoRare at the moment. I will view this with big interest. Hello, Rory. I hope you're here still. I hope we haven't bored you yet. Mike Wagner says, great guest. With the season coming to a close, here are your breakout stars for next season, and can you DM them to me before the episode is aired? So if you had, let's go for 3 then. We're not looking at just Belgian players now. We're saying for the Pro League, 3 breakout players next season who should score well on SoRare.
So I'm going to suggest first Luca Oyen. He's sort of already broken out this season.
I've got him. Yeah.
The only thing I don't like is he's a midfielder card, I believe. Like, if he was a forward card, it'd be brilliant because he wouldn't like get penalised on certain scoring matrix as much. I just think he'd score a bit more as a forward. So yeah, I'd say Luca Oyen, because I believe like Theo Bongonda's going to leave and Genk are going to start promoting the youth a bit more, and he's already broke in a little bit, so he's not like a full breakout star. But yeah, I think he'll have a season. I'm looking at, because today, again, he's been linked with big clubs. Mandela Keita, I believe he's 19. He's playing at, like, who is it? It's either Leuven or Zultwagen, one of them. He's been linked with, like, Anderlecht, Brugge, and then he's been linked with teams in Italy as well. He's like a defensive midfielder who's going to rack up, like, auto-attack score. But if he goes to one of those bigger clubs, he's just going to start to score more points. So,
What's his name again?
Mandela Keita. He's already jumped a bit in price today, just from, you know, those sort of rumors that were knocking about and coming out.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at him there. Do you know what I love? I love it so much. I've become addicted, and it's actually bad. I love nabbing a little limited of a guy like this. Do you know?
Yeah.
When someone's on my podcast and they're pumping away at someone because they believe in him, I'm like, do you know what? Let me grab a wee limited. The cheapest limited on the market here is something like 20 quid.
Yeah. I was looking today and I was thinking, I want to buy 3, 1 to keep, 2 to sort of sell on, or maybe keep 2. That's how I wanted to do, but I know I've got other plans coming up, so I've got to be careful with my balance at the moment. But yeah, I was eyeing him up and thinking, I'll take 3 of him.
Yeah. I'm going to send a wee offer there. Do you know what I feel weird about with limited, though? Here's one for you. And I'm butting in the middle of your 3 players that I've asked for. By all means, give us more. But, like, the last sale of this guy was like 0.0061, and it was a recent kind of peak. And then I would go over and look at him on SoRare, and the cheapest one on the market's like 0.0074. So I'm going to offer 0.0065, which is fair. But really, I'm just asking for like 2 quid off. But that's 10% of the value, like.
Yeah.
Like, it's that constant dilemma in my head of, am I being a stingy bastard, or is this what I should be doing?
No, what I think it is people are very active in that limited market, and they're like, oh, there's no auctions coming up with him now. Oh, no buy nows. I'll just list slightly higher than what I paid, make the little profits, and keep them racking up. So
keep moving.
Yeah. So thirdly, I'm going to go with a player. He's not going to be a breakout star necessarily because he's like 27. However, he's not on the platform yet. He will be next season. He's an absolute joke. Skov Olsen at Brugge.
Yeah, I've seen him.
His scores are insane. He's a quality player. Like, he's just going to be a joke. If you wanted to throw in another one who's similar to him, not on the platform yet, Victor Fischer at Antwerp. He's not on the platform, but he started the season, picked up a bad injury, but his scores again. And I feel because they're both at top clubs like Brugge and Antwerp, that when a star does break out or, he becomes the next big SO5 scoring player, it helps when they're at one of those big teams because people are like, I'll just jump in. They've got like international games as well. And, they've got Europe. So I'll go with those 4.
Love it. And I love those older ones because I think with breakout, like it not necessarily, it doesn't need to be the under 23s. What I love is those players that are like back from injury, a guy who has great pedigree and he was off somewhere for a while and no one's really heard from him and he's back. Those types of players I love because those are where you find a out of nowhere Hans Vanaken. Not that anyone could copy that man, but you know what I'm getting at. Let me see. Is there any questions you really want to answer before I go picking a few out? Is there any did you look at these or is there any you want to answer?
I've looked at a few, and what was the main one that I was looking at? I was looking at the Dino Hotic one. He was asking whether Dino Hotic would be staying and what's my thoughts and things like that. Again, okay. I'm unable to be like, I don't have any insider info where I'm like, he's going to stay at Circle or, because he's been scoring insane for his price. What I would say is I have seen that there's been links with Italy. There's a user on Twitter who's like a data analyst, scout, Dr. Mukherjee's, spelt a bit like M-U-K, whatever. It'll come up, Dr. Mukherjee's. I'm following him. But he's been previously he's worked at Kortrijk, I believe it was, and then he worked with Standard this season, but Standard had a ton of problems. But he puts out a load of great data. So I would follow his account. He's mentioned in his Discord that he is working for an Italian club. He cannot name which Italian club, but he is providing sort of scouting reports and players that they should be looking at. I can't see why he wouldn't suggest Dino Hotic to them. But yeah, he could stay because Circle are a well-run club. They focus on developing the youth. But I wouldn't be surprised for him to have offers. So it's a tough one to answer, that one.
The only one just came into my head there, Jesper Dalland. He plays at Circle Bruges, doesn't he? Is he? Yeah. What's his story? Anything on him?
So he's quite promising, quite young. I think what's happened recently is Circle made this like surge when they got the new manager in, where they've just went on an insane run, almost made the playoffs. And what I think has happened is because their position in the table has went up, Opta has placed more like priority of watching their games and being like, oh, that's a tackle, that's an interception. So his scores went up as Circle were playing better and beating these better teams because I guess there was more eyes on it. So yeah, it wasn't like they were just like, who are these? They're awful. So I think Opta has been taking note of Circle Bruges.
That was Black Flag HQ, just to give him the shout out that asked the question there on Dino Hotic. Let's see. Thoughts on the structure of the Jupiter League? The Jupiter League, he calls it, Weston Davis. Like, do you like the structure? And maybe just give us a quick breakdown for anyone listening who doesn't really understand.
Yeah, so the brief structure is that the teams play each other twice, home and away. Then after that period, the top 8 teams break off into 2 separate playoffs. So first to fourth play each other home and away again. And then 5th to 8th play each other home and away again. So yeah, I like the structure because I like tuning into the playoff games. And I also like the playoffs because teams who have like no chance of qualifying for Europe or like topping the individual playoff, that's an opportunity where you do see a lot of them say, you know what, we're going to give our youth players a chance, and you start to see them break through. And because it's so easy to watch and accessible, that might be an opportunity for you to see, well, he might not start automatically next season, but that's someone that they're sort of trying to line up to come into the squad. So that's something that I like about it, yeah.
Yeah, and as you say, it's like having the eye and having a wee sconce there, seeing who's kind of on the fringes. As you say, it could be a long game, but their cards could be stupidly low priced, and maybe you see something in them and you back them. So like, I know what you mean. That's exciting because it's also exciting from a perspective of like whenever you've got guys who do have something to play for. I mean, and then they're up against a team that don't have much to play for. They can dick them.
Yeah.
Which is
So
nice.
it's funny as well because when they go into these playoffs, the original points from the season are halved. So any lead that you have isn't really important. So like when you're playing teams near the end of the season, it's not just like, oh yeah, we only need a draw to win the league. No, you need to get as many points as you can because three points becomes 1.5 points. And that's the situation that Union Saint-Gilloise are in at the moment, where Brugge are chasing them down and they still want to, say that they won the whole thing. So it's going to be interesting to watch them because I feel like they're going to defend for their lives. So yeah, I happy.
We have a question here from SoRare Teledes. It's about that whole the Beneliga, which was the Belgian and Netherlands league, basically where they were going to combine. Apparently, it's been put in the bin. A couple of the big Belgian clubs pulled out or something, is what I've seen there. What were you excited for that? Were you disappointed at the thought of it? Just talk to me about it. What were your thoughts?
No specific thoughts. I didn't really look into it too much because I was just like, I'm focused on this league. When the clubs vetoed it, I was like, okay, I think it makes sense for Belgium themselves, and everyone's just trying to look out for their own their own back. And ultimately, they'll do what's best for the financial purposes, really. I think what might be good to do is maybe have one of the cup competitions or make a new cup competition and have that where the leagues sort of cross over. Or when we come to this playoff section, rather than have playoff 1 and playoff 2, that's where you split
mix a bit.
both leagues and mix and match. But again, it comes into the factor of like, well, what happens to like UEFA rankings for like, qualifying for Europe? Where do the places go? Does it have to be that all the places go to a Dutch side if all the Dutch sides win? I don't think Belgium clubs will like that. But yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because they're just going to vote for what benefits them the most, I think. So it'd be exciting to see them cross over, but maybe we could dip our toe in a little bit.
It's one of those, I think, where we've all fallen in love with all these clubs, and it'd be a shame to see some of them fall into the abyss of second division, or like even if it was like this league where they played together, some of there wouldn't be space for all the clubs we know, and maybe a lot of the guys who we know and love would fall off into the equivalent of second divisions and stuff, and not be scored anymore. So I have to say, when I seen it's not going to happen, I was kind of happy because I was like, oh yeah, okay, look, normality can continue. With a few other questions that people put out here. One's from Nathan. This is CD Ethan. He says, with more leagues and clubs being introduced, what weekly tournaments would you like to see next? I imagine a popular call to counter the dominant European stacks would be underdog, champion, challenger, etc. I don't know. Is there any sort of special weekly type vibes that you've thought of, or anything you think they could do, or different game modes that could be fun?
Well, I play Fantasy Premier League quite a lot, so I just think about that sort of community, and there's millions of them. How can you sort of cater to them and use what they do? And there's a large portion of that community who actively try and have the lowest scoring squad. So maybe you could do a special weekly of players or team that has scored the least amount of points, but they obviously have to play. You can't just have DMP. Like, they all need to be playing in order for your like squad to be eligible. But let's try and score the lowest possible score. I think that could be an interesting one to throw up, or like, 5 goalkeepers, or, get funky with it. Maybe you could say, okay, max 1 star rare, max 1 tier 1 or tier 3s only, and sort of divide it by like the tiers that you're setting out.
Yeah, I think that sort of stuff is so fun, and it can't be hard for SoRare to do that. I'm not saying that needs to be a weekly feature, but it would be fun one week to have it where you'll play players. If they DMP, it's worth 100 points or whatever, just to make it like you do not want a DMP. They have to be. You want guys coming off the bench who are going to have a shitter, and
Yeah.
like just as a one-off, have a bit of fun. Like that sort of stuff's brilliant, and it keeps people guessing, keeps a bit of creativity, adds a bit of liquidity to the market, and it's fun. And if the rewards are good, like I don't see the harm in that. There's a million ideas. There's a million ideas out there. I just don't have any of them in my head right now. A question from Eintracht Bolt says, perfect timing with the rumors of Nicholas Storm. He's actually a player I have as well, so I'd be interested. Is he rumors that he's going to Standard Liège? Thoughts on the new owners and managers and what they can accomplish next season? So I've actually got like Nicholas Raskin, I think, super rare. So I'm interested to hear the kind of rundown there. I know it's quite niche conversation, so we won't dwell too long, but what's the vibe?
So the owners of Standard Liège also own Genoa. They're called 777 Partners. And so today it's come out that they're interested in Nicholas Storm. I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to pry him away from Mechlin because his contract, I believe he does have a decent length contract still there. But it would be a big statement for them to put out, the first player they bring in is Nicholas Storm, and then they build on that by bringing in more. Because if you bring in Storm, then that sort of attracts more players where they're like, you know what, Standard are trying to get back to where they were. And another sort of interesting note is the second division of Belgian football next season, the four highest finishing youth teams of like Genk, Bruges, all the top teams, the four who finish the highest will also join the second league. So I believe at the moment it's Bruges, Anderlecht and Ghent, I want to say, and it's either Standard or someone else, but Standard could make it in there. But I'm not sure if those are the exact ones, but those sort of like under 19 players will be playing in the second division. So if you're looking for like breakout players as well, they will be playing more in the B League and you'll be able to watch them and see who's going to come through.
Cool. Well, look, I'd love that move to happen. I don't know if I'd love it. I don't think it really matters. I think Storm can score well wherever, but I'd like it. I don't know if Raskin, what his story is, but like I always like having a wee bit of a stack going on.
Yeah.
Let's see. River SoRare says, as a total newbie so far, I've won the square root of the proverbial. I do quite enjoy winning commons, though. What do you reckon to a common pro with some real rewards? This is actually a conversation I wanted to have. I went in a big rant, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago at this stage, about the state of the common division. What are your thoughts on it? And then I'll hit you with the rant again.
I like that they have a free-to-play aspect, but to me, it almost seems as if they came out with that at a convenient time. So there was sort of murmurs about, is it gambling, is it not? And then it came out with like a free-to-play mode. So they sort of had a bit of a thing to go to where they could say, well, actually, no, we have a free-to-play mode as well. But unfortunately, it's just we've got that many users now that you just have your commons clogging up your club. So that's why I noticed that all my cards were missing the other day, because I've got a ton of commons and they were all disappearing. And I was like, oh, maybe my players will actually position themselves at the front, the rare ones, when they come back, hopefully. But I'd like to see, as they said, just have a common for each league. So you get to grips with Challenger Europe, you get to grips with under 23, and just have a few rewards. It doesn't have to be loads. Just put just put a handful, 15 limited cards or whatever. It doesn't matter. You just got to put something up, or a merch bundle or a shirt, or use all the resources that you have, because you're making these partnerships with clubs. So it could be a ticket, or it needs to be a bit more rewarding.
My whole rant is, I said it before and I'll say it again, 3 limited cards for 100,000 people or in and around that is a disgrace. It's not, and I get the whole counter argument is, like last time when I went in this round, people were like, oh, but it's free to play, it's free. I mean, what more do you want? And then there's the other people who are like, oh, well, multi-accounting, it'll just encourage multi-accounting and bots and stuff. And it's like, you know what it is? There's enough people out there actually grinding away here that I really don't think it's that hard for that many people. There's so many limited cards that won't even get minted this year, by the way. To have, like, instead of 3, I actually don't think 30 every weekend is outlandish, to be quite honest. 30 limiteds. I mean, they could be tier 3s. Yeah,
Yeah.
one tier two. The podiums get tier twos. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just to have a few more people getting that taste or first reward, getting on the ladder, being able to trade their way up from the gutter. I don't know. I think it's just even like if you get people signed up, then and they're playing with their commons. If they've won the limited, even if they want to cash out, it gets them to go and set up a wallet and work out that process. It kind of like I think there's something to be gained from giving out really shitty, cheap limited rewards, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And on top of that, even if it isn't just 30 in the common all star, exactly as you said, the idea I talked about this when I was on that Discord kind of chatting away earlier yesterday when I was walking my dog. I was saying, like, yes, have regions, at least make it like a learning curve, at least have like all-star, under 23, champion, challenger, Asian America, have it so that people can learn the regions. Have an underdog common league, have a specialist one, get them to learn the structure of building teams, get them to learn, I don't get why that's not there, and I get it's not a priority, and it seems that they're super thin, but there's so many easy tap-in wins. Speaking of tap-in wins, here we go, John's favourite rant, achievements in the club shop. Why is there no Scottish banner? They've just announced a bloody league. It's not even like they're like the most beautiful, intricate pieces of artwork in the world. Someone could... I'm telling you, the guy who makes my YouTube thumbnails, I'm telling you now, he would slap up a Scottish banner that's quality in 5 minutes, 10 minutes flat. And I'm sure with a little bit of code and it could be on there. I'm saying, like, it's a really small thing. It seems really small. It's so small that people are like, come on, John, the club shop again? Really? Really, mate? Like, we don't give a shit about it. And I get you don't give a shit about it. But in terms of building engagement and building in a community and building culture around the platform, these are easy wins. Easiest wins in the world. Easiest wins in the world. And they're not been taken.
That's one of my biggest gripes is, like, there's so many easy wins that when cards do go missing, if you've got it set up so you can customize your club and your badge and change it to what you want and it's all bells and whistles, you're not noticing your cards. You're just like, okay, well, I'll customize my club a little bit. I'll change the badge. And what frustrates me is there's so much talent in the SoRare community already out there. I can't believe SoRare themselves haven't reached out to people like Sojiwa and said, do you know what, mate? Can you do some of like our graphics? Can you work on these things for us? Like maybe just like, in Pokemon, when you beat the game and you beat the Elite Four and your team gets like a Hall of Fame like thing, like that should be like a thing for like when you podium or whatnot. There should be something that comes up, and as well, I think SoRare should have like almost like a weekly roundup show, like a Saturday social. There's so many content creators out there that they could have where they say, you know what, we're going to have you host this. Like, I think there's something that could really be achieved there, but it's almost as if they're like, okay, we'll reach out to content creators that are big already and not look at ones that are skilled and already passionate about the game, and they could grow with the company itself. And that's not to say, these new creators coming in are terrible. I think some of them are great. I love watching them. But I think there's so much talent out there from people who've supported SoRare from the start that you could really take something and run with. So yeah.
Yeah. I think, like, the grand point here, I suppose, and we're leaving it on a bit of a Debbie Downer, but like, I didn't intend it to be this way, but there are just so many easy tap-in wins. And I get that to people, they aren't the priority. They need to prioritize this. And I understand that in SoRare HQ, they aren't just being wankers sitting around eating fucking beautiful, what am I even on about here? Eating lovely lunches every day, lasagnas and coleslaws, the type, and like just not doing it. And I know they're working their bollocks off. I know they're trying to recruit. I know there's a lag. I know when they're trying to get people through the door. I get it all. I just don't see how a company that big go on Fiverr and someone will build you banners for 200 quid. You know what I mean? Like, I swear to God, like whatever you say, Sojiwa, people like that in the community, there's so many talented artists within the community. People will do that. And all you have to do is probably click upload. Like, it's really easiest win in the world. Easiest win in the world. And there's a million of them. There's so many little ones and they're just overlooked. And it's all those little things. Have you ever heard like marginal gains? Mr. Like British cycling team guy? Marginal gains. All these little things add up, and there's probably 50 little things. Give me a button that I can permanently tinker commons out of my gallery. Give me that button, please. Just give me it. Not hard. Marginal gains, and they've been overlooked. But anyway, I can't be arse ranting anymore. Chris, we're going to play the 137 game.
Okay.
Last week, Harry Trades picked Zakarian, who shot a 58, and Nogami, who shot a 66, for a respectful score of 124. It's actually pretty decent. What 2 players would you like to pick?
I'm going to go with Hans van Aken.
Oh, big one.
And I'm going to... well, I don't know. We'll see. He's in my squad, so hopefully. But I'm going to pair him up with Sargis Adamian. I don't know whether he's going to play or time's limited, but I think that might be a good little pairing.
I like it. Adamian maybe off the bench, get a wee bit of a 10 AA. Vanaken shooting 100, something like that. Well, Chris, look, it's been an absolute pleasure. Is there anything you'd like to plug or mention before we shoot?
Well, I think what I'd just like to say is, thank you for having me on. Thank you for the content that you produce, and thank you for the SoRare community. I think it sort of comes up almost naturally to mention this here, but before finding SoRare, I was working as a public speaker, something that I loved. I was completely passionate about. I was good at it. It was like my dream job, basically. And unfortunately, after being sexually assaulted by a colleague, I decided that I was going to leave that job because the way that it was handled wasn't correct. And if it was in a different, if it was the other way around, it would have been handled differently. Yeah. And I struggled going into lockdown and dealing with that. And I know I've just sort of threw that out there out of nowhere, but
no.
But yeah, I just want to say thank you to the SoRare community, people that engage with me. It's been a really healthy distraction for me. So, I feel like football writes, stories that have yet to be written, and I take a lot from it. So yeah, I just want to thank the community because it's been a real positive distraction in my life. So yeah, I want to thank you, and I've thanked the SoRare team for that as well. So even though there's gripes, I think we've left it on a positive there. So thanks for having me on, John.
Well, look, Chris, honestly, thanks so much for your honesty on that. I mean, that's a big thing to put out there, but I mean, I think it shows that, like, particularly within the SoRare community, like, it is a tight community and people do get a lot from it. I mean, I think we quite often overlook how much of our lives and how much time we do put into it, and how close we do all hold it, and how big a passion it really is. So, look, thanks a million for speaking about it like that. I mean, that's amazing to get stuff like that out there. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are in positions where, they've got a lot of comfort through SoRare, and yeah, just respect you massively for that. So fair play. But yeah, it's Quirky on SoRare. Go and give the man a follow, and it's at Chris_Quirk on Twitter. Quirky, it's been lovely to meet you. Thanks a million, and good luck in the 137 game. Good luck everyone this weekend, and we'll chat to you soon.
Bye.
Cheerio. That's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like the video, subscribe while you're here, and you can find me on Twitter at John Nellis.
This is So Far So Rare, a podcast about all things SoRare.
We will see you next week. Bye-bye.